But is it still your view
That
that
he cannot be a part of the future of, sorry, I don't mean to put
yeah,
words in your
that he
mouth.
cannot be a part of the future of Syria?
It's our view, yes.
And are you willing to swallow that view if you can end the fighting?
No. Please.
You said if Russia fails at exerting its influence on Assad, the whole thing falls apart. If the U.S. fails at exerting its influence on the opposition to get them to separate from al-Nusra and the like,
Yeah, I
doesn't
talked
it
about that
fall
yesterday.
apart
It's
just
incumbent
as
on us
well?
to do our part, and other members of the ISSG, Saudis, Turks, others to to exert influence. Absolutely.
For weeks we've been
But what
hearing
we've
on this
seen,
issue
sorry,
of
but let me
getting them
just
to
finish
separate.
that by
Sure.
saying, what we've seen over the weekend, and frankly the past several weeks, have been predominantly violations on the part of the regime. So.
For weeks on this issue of getting them to separate, the rebels to separate from terrorists, we've been hearing that it's a challenge, that you're working on it. What is the result of that effort?
Well, look, I think we've had, again, it's not been a perfect track record. We have made, we believe, we've conveyed our concerns, certainly. And I think, last week, I apologize, I'm getting my timing, last week in Vienna with the ISSG, what came out of that in the communique was a fairly strong statement saying that if you continue to violate the cessation of hostilities, then the price you pay will be to no longer be a party to that cessation of hostilities. And I think that is realistically something we need to look at. Well, we agreed to do it, in fact. So sorry, just to, so I can't say that there's been 100% compliance with that. Again, this is not an overnight thing, and I think on both sides, to be honest. And so we continue to to talk to Russia. And to try to exert the influence that we both respectively can on either side.
Yesterday, I asked a few questions that you said you would look into. First, about the reported brief visit of an Ahrar al-Sham representative to Washington, D.C. Did his visit raise any red flags? Second, what does the U.S. think about this group, Ahrar al-Sham, and why should they have the protection under the cessation of hostilities when, by many accounts, they don't care much about that cessation of hostilities?
Sure. I apologize because I don't have for your first answer, except that I do know this individual certainly did not have any meetings that I'm aware of with the State Department. I can't speak to whether we were aware or not aware of his visit or entry into the country. I just don't have that information. Look, I mean, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, but Ahrar al-Sham is not a designated foreign terrorist organization. And as we talked about, it is part of this vetted group of opposition forces that are part of the HNC, High Negotiating Council. That was process mostly led by Saudi Arabia, but with the consent of other members of the ISSG. And that includes Russia, but also the United States, Turkey, others. Our expectation of them, though, is the same expectation we have for everybody who is party to the cessation, which is that they will abide by it and they will comply with, the cessation and not engage in violations. And you talked about, the attack, and I think we did condemn that. I apologize. I was on on a trip with Secretary Kerry, but I know that John Kirby spoke out against the attack last week. We have serious concerns about that kind of violence.
You said
One more question, then I'll switch.
there was an agreement.
One more question, I'll go to you. I promise.
You said there was an agreement in the ISSG where Russia tried to change that designation at the UN, and the
Russia
US
has tried
along
to, that is correct, they have tried
blocked
to,
it.
and our response is
Why?
that we believe that that kind of action at this point in time would have a damaging effect on the cessation as well as on the whole political process. We agreed that this group would be a part of the HNC with the expectation that they will not commit violations of the cessation and that they will not carry out brutal attacks. We're aware of last week's attacks. Frankly, we've seen similar attacks on the part of the regime. We need to end the brutality across the board.
Is this a yellow card?
Did you
How
know
many
that-
times, how many villages do they have to massacre before they become bad guys?
Look, we've spoken out about this attack last week. I'm not going to get into soccer references.
But they did.
I understand that.
So you now expect they won't again?
First of all, no, we're not giving them a yellow card. Second of all, they, like any member of the Syrian opposition who is part of the HNC and part of the cessation of hostilities, it has to abide by it.
Did you know that one?
Indulge